Welcome to Mystery Writers of America, Northern California, Facebook Saturday Live, where authors present short, focused talks on the craft of crime. Today we have two award-winning authors. Sabrina Flynn is in conversation with Laurie King. They will be discussing self-publishing. If you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comment section. And Laurie, you are on.
Hey,
Hi, Laurie.
this is fun. I get to talk with Sabrina. Hi, Sabrina.
I get to talk to you.
Yeah. These are such fun. So we are talking, because this is MWA NorCal's self-published month, January's. We're talking about self-publishing. Now, I've been a writer for heaven only knows how many years. My first book came out in 1993, and I have been traditionally published most of those times. We have published various odds and ends of short stories and that kind of thing here and there, but I've mostly been a traditionally published author. All the stuff of having an agent and having a contract and having an editor and having a house that says, here, we'll do this for you. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But this is a different world. And if I were starting out now, I'm not really sure what I would choose to do, because it is very different. So I have going on 30 books that are traditionally published. It's the world that I know. But Sabrina, say something about your experience and how many books you have out that are self and traditionally published, so that people know where we're coming from.
Well, I have, I think, 12 books out right now. And I kind of fell into self-publishing. I never thought I would publish. I didn't even cross my mind. I was actually writing fan fiction to Mary Russell and Sherlock Holmes. Ooh. You may have heard of them. And there was an editor.
Yeah, I hear they're really awful.
You know, I had always written books, and an editor on the forum asked me, do you have anything of your own? And I was like, yeah, I have like 2 books I wrote. So she read them. She loved them. She asked me, could I pitch this to my publisher? So I was like, sure. She did. And she came back and said it was rejected. I was like, well, you know, was it the writing? I mean, what did he think of the writing? And she said, no, he didn't look at the writing. He didn't open the page. He just said it won't sell and pushed it off his desk. And so, you know, I think as writers, we're prepared to get rejected based on our writing, but not on that something won't sell, what's popular at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of how many,
especially because, I mean, if you look back at the early 90s, if you had told me that I'd sell 3 million copies of a book about a 15-year-old smartass who meets Sherlock Holmes, I would have said, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So another author she threw all these links at me. It was like, you need to self-publish. And I got like 20 links and I had to figure it out. And the next thing I knew, I was self-publishing. And then,
as one does,
people read what I was writing. So I kept going. I never had a plan. So, you know, I made a lot of mistakes, but you learn.
So what we thought we'd do here is, and this is meant to be a fairly short piece. I mean, most of these Saturday episodes are half hour, 40 minutes at the most. So this is a brief overview for those of you who are interested in self-pub, for those of you who are looking to become hybrid authors, or for those of you who are just listening to us talk. In any case, here we go. So let us start by saying, okay, I am a traditionally published author, and I have written something that my publisher doesn't want because they say it's not going to sell. I think that it's a fairly good piece, and I think that I'd like to try self-publishing. So, step one, normally, as a traditionally published author, I would have a contract before I started writing anything, because that's the way I do. I very, very rarely write anything on spec. Some people one way, some people the other, but I usually have a contract. This is a piece of work I don't have a contract for. So I've written it. I've done a basic rewrite. I'm kind of happy with it. I think it's maybe not quite as strong as it could be, but I don't have an editor. So what's my first step, Sabrina?
Well, usually the first step I ask people is, what do you want to get out of self-publishing? If you were just looking to get a book out to your readers and, here you go if you want it, then you would approach it at a much different way. If you're looking to branch off and this is going to be a series, you're going to make this self-publishing a career, then, really you need to know what you want out of self-publishing. But always the first thing I recommend is research. Just like a mystery author needs to figure out, the setting, the time period they're writing in. Writers are really good at researching those things, but for some reason, when it comes to self-publishing, they kind of panic. There's I don't know why. There's all kinds of resources out there. But you need to get your stuff edited. You need a professional editor. There's resources. There's Mark Dawson's self-publishing formula to look up. You can get references for editors with other authors. Sisters in Crime has a self-publishing forum. I think Mystery Writers of America has one. Brian Cohen has a self-publishing community. So there's all kinds of communities for self-publishers to get references on editors. And you have to get references on the editors, because I've come across where someone will be like, well, I have a master's in English, I can edit. But that doesn't make a book editor. I've had someone will say, I have a master's, and I don't know what it is. It takes a certain kind of person to be able to edit a book. So I don't know if you found that too, but
yeah. I do a certain amount of editing because Les Klinger and I do a series of short stories, anthologies, based on Sherlock Holmes. And so I'm usually the one who edits those. Editing a short story is very different from editing a novel, and certainly different from editing a career of a person. I mean, an editor in a publishing house does a lot more than just go through your manuscript and make it right. They are your representative within the publishing house. I mean,
yeah.
So if I said, well, okay, I'm going to try and make this book as good as possible. Is there some place I should go specifically to find, I decide I want an editor, or should I put it out in front of beta readers and get their feedback? What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's creative, what's it called? Creative content editors. Some self-publishers hire those first. I think Zoe does that. And they'll actually hire them. I use a group of beta readers, and also Marilee, she's my first one to read my mess of a manuscript. And so a lot of self-published authors, they'll get a group of beta readers who will give them good feedback. You don't want to give it to your mom and she comes back with, oh, it's good, you're wonderful. You want actual people who are going to tell you the truth.
Book, sweetie.
And also you don't want someone, I used to use someone who, part of my beta reading group, she liked a gritty, depressing thriller where everyone dies novel. She hated every one of my novels because no one died. So, you want to get someone that has the same book taste as you too. So that's, yeah.
I should also mention that there are a number of forums through organizations like Mystery Writers of America. I mean, this being an MWA sponsored thing, I do not hesitate to point people in our direction.
Yeah.
We have a chapter forum. We have also in National, which you join through National, and then you're given the chapter that you live at.
Is there a list of editors on there?
There are not lists of editors, but there are forums that you can go on and ask advice. There is a self-publishing forum that at the moment is not very active, but I think will probably boost up again this coming year. 2020 was odd in many ways.
Yeah.
Let's just not even even go. But it's very convenient for people because for the most part, anyone who is trying to do this, somebody else has run across it before. So
yeah.
Okay, so I have the manuscript that I got as good as I could. I've given it to beta readers. I've hired an editor to clean it up, and I think the editor is fairly good with my kind of book. So what do I do next, Sabrina?
So while you're doing all the editing, you have it easy because you have your social media platform all set up. But someone just starting out, you need a website, you need a Facebook presence, you need a social media presence, even if you haven't published your first book yet, because you need to get everything set up. You need to have a place where you can link in the back of your book to a mailing list, to an author website. And it's kind of weird when you're first starting out because you're like, I haven't even sold one book yet. and calling, I remember putting like that I'm an author before I had even published the book. And it was strange because you kind of feel, I don't know, I felt like I was fake. So you need to get all that stuff on. And most self-publishing authors, you don't really have the money to hire someone to do it. At least I didn't. So I had to teach myself how to do website design. I know one author, she took 2 weeks off to learn how to code. So she did it in 2 weeks, wrote her entire website from scratch. I mean, it can be intense, but again, that's where it goes back to research. And you kind of fall down a self-publishing rabbit hole, just like you do in historical mystery. So, and then, oh, go ahead.
Well, you don't have to do that elaborate a thing, right? I mean, there are do-it-yourself things for feeding in and making your own website that are simple.
Yeah, that's what I did. I use something called Squarespace, but there's still a learning curve even to set up a WordPress site. I mean, it takes a bit. It looks easy, but then everything doesn't always work out. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it helps if you have maybe not professional help, but somebody who's been there before and can say, "Oh, you need to do it this way," or "This is the program I use."
Yeah, and again, that's where you go to self-publishing forums, and you get, well, what did you use and what was easy, and also it's a willingness. I think you can't be afraid of technology as a self-published author. I think it's important to know how everything works that you're dealing with. You can pay people to do it, but I personally think that the more you know how to do, the more you understand your business.
Mhm.
And again, it goes back to the original question, what are you looking to get out of publishing? Is it just a book that you can stick on your bookshelf and show your family? Or are you going to make this a career? So that's where the website and setting up mailing lists and all of that is really important.
So I have the manuscript and it's off to the editor. I've set up a basic website mailing list and the rest of it so that I'm ready to hit the ground. And I have locked in my own author name on things like websites. So, because that's,
Yeah.
there's a poor woman who writes under Laurie King. And the poor thing is forever getting emails from my people, and she sends them patiently on to Laurie R. King. So I think if she'd realized it at the time, she might have changed her name before she set up her site. So, you know,
Or she did that on purpose.
She I guess she gets traffic. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then what do I do next? Is it now time to actually think about formatting and publishing?
This is kind of all at once you're doing this. It's kind of like you're doing this all at once. So you want to get a cover designer. I started out with the do-it-yourself cover. Do not do that. Again, I wasted so much time. Don't do it yourself. It looks like you did it yourself. Unless you're a designer and you're a Photoshop expert, just hire a designer. You know, there's some great pre-made covers now. Group, they're gorgeous. They run about $100. I mean, you'll save yourself so much headache. And then also one thing new authors run into is they want everybody on the cover to look exactly like what's in their book, or they want the house that's in their book to look just like it is in their story on the cover. A cover is only supposed to convey genre, the mood of your book, and to be eye-catching. And something that I found is, you know, take whatever you're thinking of doing, put your book to a bookstore, put your book on the best-selling counter. Does it look bad? Does it look like it belongs on that counter? That's the kind of covers that self-published authors are doing now. And I think self-publishing has really come a long way. There's a lot of really business savvy people out there. And these are the kind of things they're doing. They realize they have to compete with traditional publishers. And so you need a good cover because it makes all the difference in marketing.
Yeah.
So, which is a whole nother subject.
Yes. I then have a cover and the basic media and web outreach and presence. And I have a book that is absolutely perfect and off to tell the world. What next?
Okay, so just a little information about self-publishing. So as an author, you're the publisher. So you upload your book directly to the retailers like Kobo, iTunes, Amazon, or a distribution center like Kindle Direct Publishing, Ingram, Spark, Draft to Digital, BookBaby. I mean, there's so many now. It's overload. And if you get 10 self-published authors in a room, they're all going to do it a different way. So you have to do your research again and figure out what is my end goal to self-publishing, because different services offer different things. So you need, before you can format, you kind of need to decide all of that, because you need to know your trim size, you need to know your page count, you know, and then so now you go into the formatting. Most of these services have converters on them. So you'll upload a Microsoft Word document and it will convert your book to an EPUB. I use a different program called Vellum. It makes beautiful paperback and ebooks. It's only for Mac users, and it's a little pricey at $200,
Mhm.
but that's all the books you ever want to format, and it makes it so easy.
Mhm.
Also, a service called Reedsy, Reedsy. They have a free converter that you can use. I don't know what they look like, but again, that's where as an author, a self-published author, your book needs to compete with traditional authors.
Mhm.
So you need to make your book look as professional as possible.
Mhm.
So it's really important. So, and then Amazon has made it easy now. They use, I think, EPUBs for ebook format. They used to have their different formatting document, and so now you just need one ebook format, which is called EPUB,
Mhm.
and you can upload it to all these different places.
Yeah.
Formatting is actually probably the easiest thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I without getting bogged down into the whole question of Kindle Direct and limited and all the rest of it, for somebody who's just putting their toes in the water, is there some place that you'd recommend? I mean, I look at the things that we have done, for example, as self-pub, just a number of short stories and things, and I find that the vast majority of sales are through Amazon, through Kindle. We do everything for the iBooks and for Nook and for the rest of it, but when it comes to sheer numbers, the 500-pound gorilla in the room is Kindle.
yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there are authors who do really well on iTunes. I think for a new author, sometimes Amazon is the easiest, just to upload your paperback and your ebook through them and then do an expanded distribution. Especially if you want to get into Kindle Unlimited, your ebook has to be exclusive on Amazon. But there's, I know one author, she's exclusive on Amazon with her ebooks, but she uses draft to digital to distribute her paperback books. And that gets you in Barnes and Nobles and all of those places. And then iTunes, a lot of people, what's popular now is you upload your ebook to individual retailers, because now iTunes allows marketing, and so does Kobo. And that was the big advantage of Amazon, is that you could market your book on their the Amazon page. So it's a cost per click thing that you set up through Amazon Marketing Services. So then there's another way to do it. Ingram Spark. They make gorgeous hardback covers. So if you're looking for a hard, is that what they're called? Hardback books. You can have those made. They also, Ingram Spark also allows, I think, bookstores to return books.
Yeah.
So that's a big advantage. I think you can get your books into Walmart and the big bookstores, because they like to be able to return your books if it doesn't sell.
Right.
So again, it comes back to that question of, what are you looking to get out of self-publishing?
Sure.
I think a lot of people, like, I started out with just Amazon, and now I'm kind of like, well, maybe people like what I write. So maybe I should, maybe I should look into Ingram Spark and moving that over and setting up my own publishing imprint. And then through Ingram Spark, you buy your ISBN, and then your publishing imprint is listed as the publisher. Because if you use the free ISBNs through like Amazon and Smashwords, they're listed as the publishers. And some bookstores don't like that. So yeah.
So yeah, I imagine that for most people who are just experimenting and getting started and don't want to get bogged down in the multiplicity of decisions, probably Kindle would be the easiest way. And then you branch out and you look at how that works for you, how that doesn't work for you, the advantages of doing elsewhere. But say that I've gone ahead and published it and it's in all the various formats. What do I do now?
Well, I think a lot of people, they think my book's on Amazon, it's published. I sometimes I hear, I mean, they're like
buying time off.
They're like buying boats in their head. They're buying like summer cabins, like,
oh no.
And then they're like, I don't know why no one bought my book, you know. and it's, you have to market. And I think you do in traditional publishing too. They put a lot of that on the author, right?
Once upon a time, when I first was published in the 90s, the publisher's attitude was very clearly, you write the book and leave the rest to us. They actively did not want the author to do marketing. So it's changed a lot. So yeah, it's heavily on the author's back. Usually you are working with the publicist and they are putting things your way and they are emphasizing what you've done, you know. But yeah, in the modern world, you're doing it all.
Yeah, and one advantage to self-publishing is you have complete control over your book. You can change if you find, you know, you can set up your ads. If you find that people aren't responding to your ads, that might tell you, I need to change my cover. You can go change your cover. You don't need to go through a publishing house. If you find people are clicking on your ads, but they're not buying your book, you can think, oh, maybe it's my blurb I need to fix. You can just go play around with that. So I think that's a real advantage to self-publishing is you can check, you can, what's it called? And do audience comparisons and see what ad is working, what ad isn't. And you have complete control over all that. So that's a huge advantage to self-publishing that I think traditional published authors don't have.
They're much more nimble to be self-published. On the other hand, it does take a lot of your time. So it's a payoff one way or the other. But
it is.
If you're doing it, you really need to spend time with paying attention to marketing, what works and what doesn't.
It's a 7-day-a-week job.
And that's why we on MWA NorCal certainly why we've been doing regular events, member-only events with Jane Friedman, because Jane Friedman is fabulous when it comes to indie authors and how to optimize your sales. So
I forgot to mention her. I was just looking at her website and she has just great resources on there. I just sent someone over to look at her website who was interested in self-publishing because she has everything. I mean,
she does.
Really great.
And she has a number of books that that lay stuff out and you can go back and refer to, and because that's an event like this is fine, but it mostly gives you the high points, whereas Jane goes in depth with them all. So
and I mean, just about anything you type in, you can get a YouTube video on how to do it. I mean, it's great. I mean, or a wiki how, like.
So what beyond that? I mean, how do I reach out and tell people what I'm doing? Most
self-published, I mean, everyone does different things. Some have big newsletter exchanges. I use Facebook and Amazon marketing services, and BookBub. You know, there's some self-published authors, they'll set up events in bookstores and things like that. I'm not really, I don't know. I'm not really that type, but some of them really enjoy it and they'll go to big author events and things like that. You know, I think one thing too, most self-published authors spend about 30% of their royalties on marketing, which is a pretty, it seems big, but then when you see the returns, it's like, well, if I wasn't spending that money, I wouldn't be making it. So, because again, if you don't advertise as a self-published author, you're not going to sell books.
Where do you find ads work best for?
It changes. That's one thing about self-publishing. It can change from week to week. I mean, what works one week doesn't work the next month, you know. So self-published authors are constantly reinventing how to do something. They're constantly trying new things. You have the freedom to experiment more, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think every self-published author has a different strategy they do. So
Yeah.
it's, and then like, and then once the traditional authors, the publishing companies catch on, then we kind of get pushed out and have to go find another way. So,
Sorry.
it's okay. I mean, I think they're doing, they finally caught on the BookBub.
Yeah, in a big way.
Yeah. Now I've been noticing that and I was like, wow, it took them long enough. So, yeah.
Although again, they're not always the best at communicating. So I'm forever getting somebody sending me a note to say, hey, you're on BookBub. And I said, okay.
Oh, I thought you might have something to do with that. Okay.
It's just, I never really know. I mean, every so often sometimes they'll let me know beforehand, and other times, you know, by the time I hear about it, it's finished.
Well, that's an advantage. That's so nice. I mean, that's one advantage to traditional is, you know, I sold my audiobook rights and it's so nice. Someone asked for my manuscript, I send it to them. Then they ask for my cover designer, I send it to them. And, you know, a few months later, they're like, here's the audiobook. You know, it's great.
So
like,
when in there do you start the next book?
I used to just write one book a week.
A week.
I wish. There's actually some self-published authors put out a book a month. And they're not, you know, they're quality books. I can't. I used to just write one book a year, but now our situation has changed a little bit. So now as soon as one book goes to the editor, I'm writing the next. So it's a treadmill.
Yeah. It's, I mean, you have to think of it as a business. And I think that a lot of would-be writers and beginning writers think that it's all about the inspiration. And in fact, a writing career, if you're after a writing career, the inspiration is only a very small part of it.
Yeah.
So whether that's traditional or self. I mean, with self, it's hugely stacked in the it's all my job. Where with me, they take a slice and that's, you know, I pay them a slice of my book sales in order to do all the work. But yeah, it's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that is a that's a positive thing about self-publishing, and a lot of people are drawn to it, is the royalty. Is you do all the work, but you get the more of the royalty from it. So that is a big advantage. But some people doing all the work is a little too much too.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I think it also depends on what kind of writer you are. I mean, if I had to write the way I do and do all the self-publishing stuff, I'd probably do a book every 3 years because I'm just not that efficient a writer.
well,
But
one thing you do, you develop a system, just like with writing. I mean, I'm sure you have a writing system, and you get into like a routine. This is when I contact my cover designer. This is when I send it to my my editor. And as far as formatting, it takes me an hour to format a book on Vellum. It's just getting, once you know how to do everything, it's so much easier. So
yeah. And you've got the efficiency of treating it as a career rather than as a yet another series of tasks that you don't know how to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is my position. Oh my God, I have to do this again. I just did it a year ago.
And that's a big thing about it that I like about self-publishing is I can write whatever I want. Like your example book, your publisher isn't interested in it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to worry about that. I started off as fantasy. I write historical mystery. I just wrote a gas lamp fantasy. I have a World War I thriller coming up. And I'm planning a modern day mystery series too. So
yeah.
I can I could branch out into romance.
And there you are.
Yeah,
So,
it doesn't.
yeah. I mean, you sort of get into the whole question of at what point do you have to decide what your brand is? But if your brand is Sabrina Flynn, I mean, there you are.
And that's something that took me a while to figure out. My Sabrina Flynn is my brand, and that's
all the things you do.
Yeah.
So we're down to about the last couple of minutes. Anything in particular you'd like to point people towards?
One thing I wanted to cover real quick was dangers. When you're first starting out, I think everyone used to know about vanity presses. Well, they've morphed with self-publishing. So there'll be these services that they're like, oh, pay us $2,000 and we'll do your editing, your book cover, we'll upload it and everything. So be very careful about those kind of services. Make sure you look at references. What's the quality of their covers? Do the books that they're putting out, what kind of marketing do they do? Because they'll say they market it and it's just like a tweet storm that they do every week. So go on to the books that signed with them and see, what's the ranking, how many reviews do they have? All of that stuff matters. So be really careful. And one thing I always ask myself is, what can they do for me that I can't do for myself? So be careful about just handing people money to do stuff.
Yeah. And never sign over your copyright.
Yes, that's another thing. Some of these places will have them sign that over too. So
yeah. Arthur Conan Doyle never did get a penny of royalties from his first story.
Oh, that's sad. That's really sad.
Yeah. So anything else?
I think that's it. Did anyone have any questions?
Yeah, there are a few questions, and let me read one to you here. This is from Meredith Taylor. She said, if you use KDP to publish, you can only sell on Amazon/Kindle, ?
No, with KDP, if you enroll in Kindle Unlimited, you can only sell your ebooks with that. But if you upload everything to KDP, you don't have to sign into Kindle Unlimited. So you'll upload your ebook to them, and then you can upload your ebook to something like iTunes, Kobo directly. And Amazon also has, if you choose to do your paperback with them, they also have something called expanded distribution. And that, I mean, my books, I use that. My books are in library catalogs and bookstores. You know, someone can walk in the Barnes and Nobles and order them from there. You know, they're on the independent online bookstores. So it just depends what you want to do.
Another question, both of you were talking a little bit ago about BookBub. Can you explain what that is?
Well, if you're a reader and you don't know what BookBub is, you need to go sign up to the mailing list, because you can get free books and books for 99 cents. It's great for readers. So basically what an author does is they pay BookBub to advertise their book, and to offer it at a discount to this huge mailing list. I mean, an author can really take off with BookBub. And so, yeah, if you're a reader, sign up for it, because you can get all kinds of free books from that. And it's a great way to find new authors. So.
Also, this is from Vicki Dennison. At the beginning, you were talking about your first book, just, you know, without even being looked at, was denied. And she said, do you think the male publisher denied you because of a gender issue?
I don't know. My first fantasy was about, it was a unique fantasy. I mean, I took a nymph, you know, from Greek mythology, and I was like, you know what? No one's ever made them be the main character. So my main character was a airhead nymph. Really hard to write a fantasy novel with that, because you know, when you have an airhead, and so he said that it would remind people of Lolita, which I don't know, but so who knows.
And let's see, here's from Marilee Taylor. She asked you to say something about how to get Amazon reviews, how you use them.
Ooh, that's tough. You know, there are whole books on how to get your first 10 Amazon reviews. As a new author, that is so hard. Less than 1% of readers will leave a review. So,
And usually they'll leave it if they hated the book for some reason.
yeah,
like
exactly.
it was $2 instead of $1.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, there's whole courses on how to do that. There's whole books. You know, all I can say, if you're a reader, reviews matter so much. I think even in the traditional world, they matter. I mean, they'll not sign an author again if they don't have enough reviews, right? I mean, I don't know. That's what I've heard.
I actually pay almost no attention to the free reviews.
Yeah.
Personally, I just don't.
Yeah. But it matters in self-publishing, because it matters if you can get into BookBub or not. If you don't have any reviews, they're not going to let you in. And if people go to your page and they've never heard of you and there's one review, they're not going to buy your book. So it really helps to have a beta group, a group of beta readers who will actually leave reviews. So
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. The last question is from Vicki Dennison. She wants to know when the next Ravenswood mystery is coming out.
I hope by April.
Good.
Yeah.
Have you finished it yet?
I have a really rough draft finished. It's a mess though. I tried a new way to write it, and usually my first draft is basically a finished draft. Mm-hmm. And I tried the just keep writing method, and now I'm going back and I'm like, this is taking longer. So I'm hoping April. I think the working title is A Lively Corpse. So we'll see.
Lovely. Great.
And there's
Super.
one more, and this is from Claire Johnson. She
Okay.
asked you to mention something about Goodreads.
Oh, mention something about it.
Well, just maybe explain it or how a new author might be able to use it.
Goodreads. They have a marketing thing on there. It's horrible. My advice to authors is to stay off of Goodreads as a new author. Don't read your reviews. Don't interact with people. As an author, the forum people do not like authors on there. Yeah, and Goodreads is kind of, I don't know, it's really not as popular as it was. I think they didn't keep up with things. A lot of readers left when Amazon bought it. But my advice to new authors is stay away from Goodreads. There's a lot of authors, you go into forums and they're pushing their book to groups and they just get so angry. You know, I used to be in forums and get into book discussions and not even mention my book, but just say like, oh, I didn't like this book. And then a fanatic fan would go and give my book 1 star. They'd see that I was an author and they'd go like 1 star because I didn't like their favorite book. So
yeah,
I would suggest, you know, set your author profile up, have all your books listed, all of that. But then if you're going to actually go on there, make another profile. So
yeah, have your Goodreads pseudonym. So
yeah.
So that takes care of the questions that I've seen. So any wrap up that you might like to do?
It's Self-Pub month. Everybody go out there and get some writing done. Join MWA and play with the rest of the authors.
Yeah.
and read Sabrina Flynn, who's fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.
Bye all.
Bye.